Hi all, welcome to the Promethean Bryce YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram, Buy Me a Coffee, and at square.site at Promethean Bryce. This is just the Christmas special part one. There'll be a two-parter. This one's just an anime girl in a Christmas style. This is going to be an unedited commentary, and you can get a general idea of how to do things, but it's not really a tutorial. So let's just get into the video. So as always, we start with the basic structure of the body on this one in particular. So let me explain first. What I did first is put in these reference images, which I had to actually do myself because this particular one I didn't actually have a reference for. I kind of went off the just went along with designing it as I went along rather than having a actual design in mind. Just a little bit of fun this time around. I didn't really know what to do, so I just thought I'd have a bit of play around and adds to a bit of practice. So what I did first was make my own one in Clip Studio, and then just got like a basic one done where it's got the front and side and back, but I only use the front and side anyway. But yeah, either way, it's just a reference image of the basic body shape and type, so I can get that overall base just to get started for the modeling, or the sculpting in this case. So as you can see, I'm just getting a sphere, remeshing that sphere to be able to edit it in the sculpt mode on Blender, and then just using the move tool to position it where it needs to be. As you can see on the screen, everything from the torso, legs, arms, feet, and even hands. I always do feet and hands a little bit more in depth just because they're a little bit more complicated, so I'll do each finger sort of part by part. But then over time they'll get a little bit more detailed, but for the most part they're mostly done anyway, because you'll find that the hands, even the basic shape, are going to be quite detailed, as it were. So in this particular reference right now, that base reference I didn't feel was quite to the look of my character, or the one that the character that I feel that I wanted to do. So I had a little bit of almost like a mood board to the side of sort of what hairstyles I want, face shapes, body types and stuff. And so I've just got that basic one together and then changed it as I've gone along. So as you can see, just, moving the size of things out, increasing the length, increasing the width of stuff, the size of like the boobs there, for example. And then after I've done that and I feel that's fine, we start adding in the sort of the amount of muscle mass that I need. And this one in particular, I didn't want a great deal too much detail, but I wanted enough, because you're going to see it sort of later, because she'll have sort of part of the stomach showing and the upper sort of arm and that, which like I said, I'll get to in a bit. So let's have a look. We've got, so yeah, everything I'm doing here, I'm just duplicating it over once I've done it. So I'll edit it a bit, duplicate it over, and it's sort of the chest, which I've got the x-axis mirror on. But yeah, I'm just getting that muscle set just enough in. I mean, it's sort of detailed, but I like to get enough detail in because it just feels a lot more natural. But as I've realized over sort of doing more of them, and as I go forward, I'll try and keep that detail minimum, because I've noticed that it can be quite nice, quite simple. But it's just sort of, when you're doing clay, for example, which I started with, you have to do that to sort of base it out on clay, and it's just sort of something I've got used to. So yeah, so after that, you just, like I said, you never want to get too much in depth. You just want to get enough of that head to get that basic head shape, because there's going to be a lot of that added later. And then another thing, like I was saying, where I've got a bit more detail on those feet. So here I'm just thinning them out, getting that shape together, round it off. And I think at this point I'll be adding toes. Yeah, so I started adding toes in because later on I've got like she's wearing a sort of sock where you can see that big toe and the outline of the toes. So I had to do the toes in general just to get that. Because I'll be masking it later, which I'll show when I get there. But I need those things in, ready to go. And again, I've just duplicated that over. And then, so this one I've done a little bit different, as you can see. So this is where I started doing the fingers, where I'm doing the knuckles, and then joint sections all the way to the tip of the finger, and then just editing that tip so it almost looks like a nail. Just because it's this one being an anime girl, doesn't have to have the nail necessarily there. Then once you've done that, you edit the hand a little bit more around to make sure that shaping's correct. Dip it in, and then you use. Well, I use the other ones to use the basis for the form, just the bit on the inside, which you can do on the singular mesh, but I do it separately just to make it a little bit easier. And then the widening of the thumb. Always takes that a little bit extra. So then after that, that's when you really want to start. So I've done a little bit more editing here because before I started, I realized actually I wanted a little bit sort of less detail and a few things a little bit spaced out. So I did another sort of layer to make sure it was correct, smoothed some things, which actually worked out for me in the end anyway. And then I've started really separating those boobs because of the way I join it. But in later models, I've actually found a way I might be able to do it a bit differently, but we'll get to that in later videos. So as you can see, it's a bit wide at the moment, but I start with the eyes on the face section, and then we're just modeling in that brow, nose section, tip of the nose outwards. Try and keep the detail there and keep remeshing it so it keeps the topology correct, and it keeps it so you can actually model it. And you're just editing it. Now, without a reference here, it took me a little bit longer than usual to get the face. So be warned, if you're actually doing it like this, it might take a little bit longer. If you've got the reference, add it, it'd be great. And you do, right, something I noticed or something I realized afterwards is that I could have got that base face in and been a bit quicker, because you don't need to have the actual face in. You can sort of edit it as well. You just want it for that correct shape and positioning. Like I said, I did eventually get it correct. It's just, it took me longer than what it should do. So yeah, just extruding those. The eyelash, just the area around the eyes, the eyelids, smoothing it off, getting it nice and neat. I tend to cut them in, even if it's sort of anime girl, anime male. I try and cut them in and make the eyes something that's movable. You can actually keep this quite basic and add textures and stuff to animate a face, which can sometimes look better depending on the look you want. But this is going for a model, and I wanted it a bit more proper 3D, like a proper conversion. So then after I've done that base layer, I'm just going over and over, just making sure that all those parts are the way I want it to. In this one in particular, I found that the shoulder section was a bit too wide, as well as here where I just did that, making those two leg bits flat because I'm going to be joining them later. So you can put your ears in early like I've done here. Helps you get that sort of face shape. Or you can do it later as well, depending on what you want. And sometimes you might not even put the ears in if the hair is so thick and you don't need it in a star-wise. So on this one in particular, I've gone with the hair next. So I'm just getting that basic shape for the hair. So first okay, so I'm starting to color here as well, because like I'll say in my next videos, and I've started to say where I now get a nice color on, just so I know if I've got things wrong, because you can actually, the color really does help see mistakes, or helps you see where you're going wrong. So you can get it edited nice and early rather than something high quality later and then having to change the thing completely. And then, like I said, I'm just constantly moving that face over as I notice. Like I said, getting the hair in's given that shape a little bit more different. So I've had to keep editing along the way. And that's getting that basic hair around the back, because the hair might come extrude out and have a load of parts like I'm doing here. But you want that base one in anyway, especially if it's sort of like an anime or comic figure, just because it's better to do. Or anyone with sort of short, flat hair as well. But with this one, I'm using the curve tool and then reshaping that curve tool to get the shape I wanted. After I've got that, so you can see there, I'm just sort of pulling them out, trying to make them look a bit more rounded. If it's a struggle, like I found at this point, join them together, like I've just done there. Then get your sculpt tool and move them around and get that shape correct and a bit more smooth. So that's if you're struggling, just convert it early. But if you feel like you want to edit it more, try not to convert it, because it'll be a bit more of a pain. Or just keep one to the side. I think sometimes you'll notice I'll put things to the side just in case I get things wrong and have to start again. So originally I went with a different hairstyle, but I felt like it wasn't looking very good at first. So this is the original one where I was going to go for like a this particular ponytail style down to the side, but then I've changed this later, so I won't get too much into this. I just felt it looked a bit too messy, and I was just going to do it again anyway, but then I saw a different hairstyle which I thought I'd prefer anyway. So yeah, you're getting all those textured bits in by adding cut-ins with the sculpting tools. So you could, again, it's however you want to do it. If you wanted to keep this, for example, if you liked it, it'd be great. But this is in the T pose as well. Forgot to mention that. I do a animation pose now and a keep it separate, and then do a pose for the sculpt. So what I've done here is I've started doing basic stuff like a belt, because this character in particular has sort of like a belt with a skirt. So I'm trying to get that belt all nice and hard surface as I can, as well as shaping it to the body, sort of forming it to the body a bit. Issues with this can be getting it exactly right. If it's something close to the skin and it's not hard surface, I'd recommend the later method of grabbing the mask tool and then extracting the mask after sharpening it, which I'll show later anyway. But yeah, so with this in particular, I've just gotten that cylinder tool, made a basic shape over, remeshed it so I can actually sculpt it, and then I've added creases and moved it around to make sure it fits correctly. Extruded the belt section there in the middle. Done that, and there's a part now where you get sort of that fluff, the white fluff around edges. Well, what all I've done there is put a cylindrical tool, remeshed it, and then used the bobble tool and just clicked, instead of drawing it on or whatever, I've clicked it to make it bobble out and make it look like that fabric. And this is what I was saying earlier, where you'll use the mask tool, draw around where you need it to be, extract the mesh as much as you need it to be, because you can have it a tiny bit. You don't have to even extract it all if you want it quite thin, but I like my stuff to look a little bit more realistic with the thickness. It will leave this sort of hard edge, which all you need to do is really smooth it off, but it will decrease the size of it a little bit around the top. In later ones, I've noticed that the settings to the side, when you do the mask extract, and you can mess with the settings there to get it a little bit more flat, and when you smooth it off, it doesn't create as much of an issue. But if anyone out there knows how to extract it where it's flat, or make sure it stays flat, comment in my comment section, because I actually do need a bit of help with that, because I can't really find it myself and in other people's tutorials at the moment, because most people use a plane to make clothes, and I've only seen one other person use my method, and well, basically the same. It doesn't speak about any of that stuff. But as you can see here, look, you're masking it there, and as soon as you extrude it, you'll see that sort of edge section. And you're just smoothing it off. Now, it can look good like that. It's not a massive issue, but like I was saying before, if you want something hard-edged or flat, maybe like a jumper with the hood, that's not gonna, you'll need it to be a bit thicker or flatter. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, and I'll learn more as I'm going along. Then we're just sort of adding each part of the model here. Here we've joined two together and smoothed it off to make sure I can get the entire leg, and then I'll bring it across later for the full sort of remesh. And I'm just putting one to the side there so that when I save the second file out, I can do the pose one later. I just forgot to do that earlier in this particular video. That's why it's just randomly in the middle now. So here I'm just sort of messing around with the lighting a little bit just to get the best settings so I can see what I'm doing a bit better. And then we're just adding those sort of bubble, sort of fluff bits on the Christmas items. And then with everything, we're painting it as we're going along as well. And this is the part where I start changing the hair, because I think, like I said, I didn't feel it was good enough. So this time I've changed it to sort of a twisted sort of ponytail sort of thing. Not sure exactly what you call it. I'm blanking. It's a bit late as I'm doing this, so forgive me if I'm getting my words a bit mixed up, and as well as it being unedited. But you're just getting that sort of there. You're getting one piece, moving it over, and then slightly editing it so each one looks just that bit different. It don't have to be massively different because obviously it's going to look similar anyway. But you just want it that natural sort of small size difference. Then I'm bringing one of those sections back and then splitting it off so it comes out into those clusters. And with that, I'm not using the thingy, the curve tools. I'm just using a normal mesh and flattening it around. Sometimes I'll use that, sometimes I won't. It just depends on what I want the end result to look like. If it's thicker, I'd suggest going with the ball, bringing it over and moving it. If it's thinner and more complex, use the mask tool, the curve tools. And then we're just adding these sections for the belt. You could technically model these in, but because they're quite sharp, I've got a cube, booleaned the middle section out, and then had it just clasp in to make it look like the belt holders. And then just slightly move them over with the sculpt tool to get them as much as I can on. And then at this point, I've decided that everything's the way I want it to be. So I've just joined all the hands together, remeshed it. And like I say, with every time with the hands, you're going to have to remesh it as low as you can on the numbers just to get the best result, or else the hands will join together and it will sort of merge it together if you're remeshing it. So it's going to start making the computer memory run a bit slower. But you can deal with that. I found a way of dealing with that in future videos by just doing the hands and feet last and the body first. And then when you join those, because it's remeshing the entire section, you can go to a higher setting, have enough to keep that from sort of joining together and getting the result low enough poly so it's not into the millions, for example. So yeah, I'm just joining every piece that I need, excuse me, that I need together bit by bit, because this is the T-pose one, like I was saying. So grabbing each section, either boolean unison it together, or what I tend to do now is just press join, because it can do that for you. And then when you've joined it, you just remesh it. And then you do small little sort of smooths to get it looking better. And then just curving sort of cutting things in a little bit to make it look a bit more like the armpits, for example, to get that shape. And on this particular one, I actually forgot a particular part of the clothing. I just completely forgot. So I did this later. Oh, I did the eyes in without playing the video because I didn't know if that would work. So I've added that by just painting it in with the eyes and then getting a plane, moving the plane into the position I need it to be, extruding the plane, and then remeshing it to get that bubble section again. And then I'll color it separate. So because it's one mesh this time, I have to color it with a red first and then the white. And then after that, I've just, because it's going to sort of collapse together, we've got the two metal loopholes. And then I use the curve tools, the Bezier curve tools, to go through those loops to create a bit of rope to attach the two. And then in between that, a clasp to keep those ropes together. And to paint that rope, all I did was convert it to a mesh. There's a nice little bit of metal rope there to keep it together. I thought that looked pretty cool. I was going to add a bow, but I decided not to because I thought it looked pretty good already. So then after that, to get some more anime looking eyes, I've sort of blocked out that eyelash, kept it black, and then sort of meshed it, used the move tool to get it into position. I do this various different ways, and I'm getting my own techniques of trying to get it better. Again, if you've got a better technique and you want to help me out, just comment in the comment section and drop me a message. That's the way I've done it on this one, for example, but it looked good. So now, like I said, I've done that animation pose. It can be used for animating, but now I want one that's just for poses. For the pose, for the 3D prints, which I'll be offering up on my buy me a coffee at Promethean Bryce if you wanted to buy them separately, or if you wanted to, all the ones that I've done up until now and the future ones, just a £7 membership would be much appreciated to help me out anyway. But yeah, so what I'm doing here, similar to before, just now everything's done, you're just posing it where you want to pose it, making sure it looks as close to that pose as you want. It's going to be hard to do. You're going to have to keep moving it around. If you can weight paint and stuff like that and rig a character, it's easier just to do the one before and then pose it. But this is just the way I've done it. It saves me a bit of time on weight painting for now, and while I'm not very confident on it. So all I'm doing is moving it around, and then I've changing on some I'll change the face, but not on all. But with this one in particular, I'll have her eye wink and a sort of cheeky smile. And she's going to be holding out a present, so I'm just turning that so it holds out. Smooth. So doing that, smoothing that all off, and then recreating the eye section. I deleted this eventually, that one there, because I didn't feel it was correct, and made a new one in of the eyelash. Yeah, but like I said, it's just moving things around, bits and bobs. Closing the eye up there. Moving sort of the bits and the muscles and the faces to where it would move. So yeah, so there's a lot of cuts and stops here of me stopping the OBS, but it helps me keep on track so it doesn't crash, because I've had some problems with it crashing every now and then. But yeah, so again, just moving that body in, remembering where the muscles are going to move to, because it's not, when you've done the base one, you're going to have some muscle movements, like when the back curves in here, or the foot moves, and you're just getting it all into that shape as best you can. Then once you've got your pose to how you think it should be, which obviously at the moment I'm still getting those little bits and bobs, you just want to join the ones for the clothes. So like I said, join it as separate as you can. Try not to do it all merged and then separate it with the mesh. just because you're going to overwork your computer. Try and do it by section and then join it all together in the end. But if you can't help but have to, so let's say you've got a shirt, a long sleeve shirt, you're going to have all that top section done, for example. But don't worry about it. It should be fine. Just keep your polygon count low. On here, I've taken some of the previous items from the animation version, just saved them out as an OBJ, and then re sort of work them into what I need them to be if I can. I couldn't do that with the legs and the arms, but I could do it with the skirt, and I could do it with that sort of drape. So I deleted the belt on this one because I felt like it wasn't very good moved around, so I redid that. And then it's just like the first go around on the animation version, grabbing your leg, extruding your mesh, and then that's when I realized that I forgot to do the toes in that one. But you extrude your mesh, you get your socks done. You do the same with these sort of arms. Just masking it where you need it to be. Put the mask on 100%, just saves you any troubles. And then extracting that mesh. After first, you've got to sharpen it. I usually say about twice if you want something hard edged. And you're getting as close as the original one as you did before. Again, don't worry about it being slightly different. If you think about the way when you move and your clothes move, they're never going to be perfectly exact. You're smoothing things off. Making sure the color's done and the red. Getting those little bits of details if you want them or need them. And then some parts of the clothes I'm hiding just to get other areas in a bit easier instead of sort of overdoing it. And just doing all those sort of Christmas extra bits, turn them to white. But I mean, we're almost done. Yeah, it's just a case of, just like I said before, once you've posed it, getting that extra bit off, making sure everything looks correct. And then adding your sort of extras, like here, for example, the box, which we'll be adding stuff to later. Again, excuse me. So you just want to be just copying it over, making sure it looks as close to the original as possible, as close as the design you want. Then I'm just joining it to make sure all those clothes are together. And then I've taken the clothes away because now what I'm going to do is join the sections, like I said before. All the bits that need left to be joined. There's a tricky bit on those sort of upper arm sections because you've got to make sure that muscle still stays rounded but flat enough so it goes into the shoulder blade and also that area at the back. And then the same problem with the toes as with the hands, making sure you join them together with enough so they don't merge. So you might need to do it, say, a couple of times like I've done here. And then just remesh it and then continue modeling. And you'll see here, like, I've had a few crashing issues, which I eventually get sorted out. Like I said, it's one thing I'm still learning is try and keep it low enough to keep the polygon low enough and not keeping it merged in. So making sure it doesn't meld together. All we're doing with the box here is just adding the ribbon on, just extruding the section a little bit, adding a curve for the sort of hoops. Oh, and the belt, which I obviously forgot about until a bit later. Same method as before, just moving it around, getting into position. And except on this one, I've added a a cube to the belt in between. So it's slightly different, but only the tiniest bit. And then we'll get those sections done again. And then be careful with these because they can be a bit tricky to move exactly into an area. You've got to keep getting it as close to that skirt as possible, but keeping that skirt close enough to the body as possible, which on the second go around with the edit is a little harder to do. But if it's a fresh one, it's a lot easier. So then, like I said, just creating that ribbon at the top. But when it's done this, it's pretty much done. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. This is part 1. Part 2 is coming soon. The Turbo Man. I hope you enjoy that one. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next Christmas video, part 2. And just in general, just watch all my stuff. Thanks very much. Here's the final model. See you in the next one.